Hello, what time is it? It's IMR time, and that means that I finally reviewing IMR EDP Ace. Unfortunately, I probably won't get new models that IMR announced and actively producing now. I made some time ago pre-order for their full-size model. I will get it and review soon, but unfortunately I can't afford myself now to buy every single model IMR makes. They have a lot of interesting stuff in production, but unfortunately due to war I have another ways of spending money. But anyway, IMR EDP Ace, it's, if I remember right, it's the third iteration of the EDP model, because it was EDP, EDP Plus and EDP Ace. First, EDP was born like idea to create an affordable model that utilize planar magnetic earphones. Actually, it stands for everyday plannars. And Ace is a recent release, by now using the 10mm ADLC driver, more recent touch, better sound, and so on. Price for this model is $450, but for the members of IMR Club, usually there are discounts and some restock, second market, and so on. And actually, as usual, this model by the moment of review is already sold out. But second-hand market is pretty active for EDP, for IMR and EDP in particular. IMR is boutique model, so they run limited releases. That means that you have to follow their website to get the new information and make pre-orders. In exchange, you're getting pretty interesting design ideas, interesting drivers and tuning. So today we'll talk about this. And EDP Ace came in traditional fabric storage box, or I don't know, storage bag. I like this idea. Instead of some cardboard box, you're getting nice nylon bag for carrying. Everything is traditional here. On top you'll get a manual. The most interesting part of this manual is information about tuning filters, what they do for the low frequencies and mid-high, and also a few recommended combination of filters that you can easily try. So you'll get also earphones themselves, 8 pair of bass filters, 6 pair of mid and treble filters. They are replaceable, traditional set of tips with 2 double flange, 3 single flange, and pair of foams, 6.3mm adapter. Actually, you know, this is my favorite tips. I use them with many other models. I've got a lot of IMR and I got a lot of these tips. And you'll get 3 cables. At least it was with first batch of models. Maybe some refurbished ones will be without the 3 cables and short clip. But actually it's a good solution for the problem of having different connectors. You just get 3 cables to suit all your needs. So presentation is traditional, but it's something to expect from IMR. In terms of design, they are really good. You know, it's a pretty simple shape, but at the same time it's rather ergonomic, fitting nicely into ears, and this combination of black and white enamel looks really great. And actually what is really fancy here, that they are not glossy, so it looks really exciting. Traditionally for IMR, level of machine work is close to perfection, so these gaps are minimal, everything is pretty seamless and connected together really well. Most probably if you unscrew these screws you can get access to internals, but if you'll decide to do that, be careful, some internal wiring can be pretty fragile. Into my ears they fit really well, providing really good wearing comfort and slightly above average sound isolation. Here are their spouts, and traditionally they serve as filters. You can unscrew just the top part and it will allows you to tweak upper, mids and treble, and you can unscrew bottom part and replace it. It will give you possibility to change the amount of bass. So 48 combinations to try. Smart idea to put vent hole on the back side, so in a windy environment wind won't came inside and won't do some extra noise like it sometimes happens with other models, but actually it's not often the case. And the spout also works as a lip for holding the tips, and it has a protective grill to avoid some debris getting into your ears. Earphones, of course, not ears. And cables made replaceable. Here use traditional IMR 2-pin connector with recessed socket. You can use some third-party cables, but stock ones also have additional notch and groove to ensure that you plug it correctly. But actually I think it's a bit of overcaution here, because over the ear earphones are hard to get connector fit improperly. Cable itself I really like, but I've seen some people who were not satisfied with it. Maybe I'm just used to this cable during many years of using IMR earphones. For me it gives pretty good wearing comfort and low microphonics. Also it looks pretty unusual. You can see that inside of insulation tube goes some interesting wires in additional metal insulation, so pretty fancy looking. A lot of people experiment with cables, but in my opinion 48 options of sound is more than enough to play. And here is the splitter with chin slider, and underneath it goes just twisted down to the different types of jacks. Like Pentagon is straight and 2.5mm is angled. So in general, really good cable, nice earphones in terms of design and wearing comfort and all other stuff. And as usual about the sound, I decided to give them 500 hours of burn-in recommended on the website, but audible for me changes were only during first 100 or 120 hours, not more than that. So if you decide to buy them, and I think that 150 hours will be maximum burn-in they will need. And I really recommend you doing that before trying to find some filters, because usually IMR models noticeably change sound during the burn-in process, and actually somewhere in the middle of this process they start sounding worse, but then sound settles, and so on. And as usual, I also recommend you trying to experiment with filters, because most probably you will find your own unique combination that other people don't recommend. In terms of sound, actually they made of polar opposite to Zenith 2. They are less aggressive on the treble. They have less accented low frequencies, so they sound more linear, but at the same time not too dull like some can expect from typical planar magnetic earphones. And actually forgot to mention that they have dynamic driver, they have a planar driver, and they have bone conduction driver. So 3 types of drivers here. I was a bit wrong in the introduction. And the bass is pretty deep, it has a nice pleasant impact and good weight, but at the same time it's not trying to be super impactful like for example IMR. So if you want to get more bass, you can try using bassy filters, but I actually prefer here using even less bassy filters that I traditionally use. Traditionally I use red ones, but here I used purple ones because they reduced the quantity a little bit and let me focus on the quality, on the saturated overtones and the pleasant representation of body of the instruments. If you want to use it with electronic music, you can just use some more bassy filters. And first example, it's from the 2019's Munich High-End Society compilation that was distributed on that exhibition, and it's Gunnar Hoff group and track named Point Black. So traditionally good jazz with nice modern bass, and these earphones deliver it nicely thanks to the good technical capabilities. And second example for low frequencies, it's typical tracks album actually that I use with IMRs. It's Exchange by Massive Attack, because Massive Attack usually offers rich bass, multi-layered with a lot of things going on and really interesting to listen to. Mid frequencies are typical plannars, pretty linear with good detalization, but at the same time here they have a bit of added weight. Maybe it's done on purpose to make sound more relaxed and more comfortable, but not focused just on the micro contrast, and result is pretty musical and enjoyable. They also feature slight bump at the upper mids to make distorted guitars and female vocals sound more saturated and bright. Imaginary stage is above average in width and slightly above average in depth, so they are more wide than deep. But at the same time, it's not super huge or spacious stage. It's pretty good, but not like the record one. If you want bigger stage, then it can be your option either. But here you'll get more forward vocal with more nuances, and because of that, actually, vocal is slightly separated from the rest of instruments, and with some tracks it gives a really pleasant result. And actually, example of this, it's Satyricon Phoenix. And if you heard Satyricon, you can understand that it's like black metal, but black metal done in, I don't know, joking way or maybe non-serious way, because Satyricon use all that black metal stuff. They actually were one of early pioneers in this genre, but at the same time they innovating really much there. For example, in Now Diabolical album they used almost dance rhythms, and here they use unusual instruments and to deliver really dance sound, but at the same time this earphones separate vocal, brings it more forward, and you can hear that glorious screaming in a better way. And actually not this direction. Not sure what happened with this thing, but second example will be The Doors' Light My Fire, another example of track built around the vocal, and this earphones shines here once again. And treble, they are pretty energetic, but at the same time for me they don't sound fatiguing or super bright. But if you're really sensitive for the treble, that can be your option. They have above average extension, not the maximum, but noticeably above average. Basic layering, but done in a proper way, so you'll get this separation of the overtones of different instruments. And at the same time they sound pretty airy and with a hint of added sparkle, so to make everything more fancy in the treble area. Nice way, not absolutely monitoring of representing treble, but at the same time pretty engaging with additional sparkiness. And the first example, it's Ivan Tkalenko, it's Ukrainian performer. He plays the Ukrainian traditional instrument bandura, really interesting and timbre-rich instrument, but Ivan Tkalenko also mix it with modern representation. It sounds a bit in a rock manner, but without additional instruments, so it's really interesting to listen. He arranged classical tunes like this one named Thought to broaden the knowledge of this bandura, and to my opinion he's a bit underestimated musician. And the last track, it's Nguyên Lê, cover version of Dark Side of the Moon, and their version of Cover on the Run. Really unusual way of doing this track. It's even more chaotic, probably correct way of pronunciation, than traditional version by Pink Floyd with random saxophone and going to the treble area, and this saxophone sounds really pleasant with these earphones. In terms of sources, actually they are okay with even mid-segment players, but something cheaper won't be the proper pairing for them. And speaking about the conversions, actually they are pretty different from the original EDPs. They tried to be more monitoring, more natural. Here you'll get additional warmth, a bit sparkle on the treble, but actually not overdone, and more weighty low frequencies. And recently reviewed Zenith, it's quite an opposite. It has bigger, punchier bass, more bright and extended treble, a bit more spacious sound, so they are more fun, more engaging to listen. So it was IMR EDP Ace. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a great day.